Scorpio, the energy surrounding you from August 17th through August 23rd, 2026 feels like a week of deep realization, emotional transformation, and a truth that can no longer remain hidden. Something has been changing inside you for longer than people realize. You may have been quiet about it. You may have continued with your responsibilities, smiled when necessary, and acted as though everything was normal. But deep down, you know that you are not the same person you were a few months ago. Something has shifted. And this week, the tarot suggests that you are finally ready to acknowledge it. You may have reached a point where pretending no longer feels possible. Not because you want drama, not because you want to confront everyone, but because your soul is tired of carrying what your heart has already outgrown. The first part of the week may bring a strange mixture of calm and intensity. On the outside, very little may appear to be happening. But internally, you may be thinking about one particular situation again and again. Person. A decision. Promise. A missed opportunity. Something you never received an explanation for. You may ask yourself why it still matters. Why you still remember. Why one particular conversation still comes back to your mind. And the tarot gives you an important answer. It matters because you never completely understood what happened. But this week, you may not need another person to explain it. You may finally understand it yourself. Scorpio, you have a powerful emotional memory. When something affects you deeply, you don't simply forget it because time passes. You carry the lesson. You analyze what happened. You remember what was said and what wasn't said. But there comes a moment when remembering stops being useful and starts becoming a chain. This week may help you break that chain. You may realize that you don't need an apology anymore. You don't need someone from the past to admit they were wrong. You don't need them to understand how deeply they hurt you. You don't need them to return. You simply need to accept that it happened, understand what it taught you, and decide that it will not control your future. That is a powerful form of healing. And for Scorpio, healing doesn't always look like forgetting. Sometimes healing looks like remembering without feeling the need to go back. If you are in a relationship, the tarot shows a strong emotional conversation developing. There may be something that you and your partner have avoided discussing. Maybe there has been emotional distance. Maybe trust has been tested. Maybe one of you feels misunderstood. Maybe you've been carrying a concern but haven't wanted to say it because you fear what the answer might be. This week asks you to stop protecting the relationship through silence. Silence can protect peace for a short time, but eventually hidden feelings become walls. If you love someone, let them know what is really happening inside you. Don't speak from anger. Speak from truth. You may say something as simple as, "I don't want to fight. I just want us to understand each other." That sentence could change the atmosphere between you. Your partner may reveal something they have also been afraid to say. You may discover that some of the distance wasn't caused by a lack of love, but by fear, stress, or misunderstanding. And if the relationship is strong, honesty can make it stronger. But for some Scorpios, honesty may reveal something more difficult. You may discover that you have been holding onto a relationship because of history rather than happiness. You remember everything you've been through together. You remember the good moments. You remember promises. You remember how much you once loved each other. And because of that history, leaving may feel impossible. But history is not the same as destiny. Sometimes a person can be important to your life without being meant to remain in your future. That realization can hurt, but it can also set you free. If you're single, Scorpio, your romantic energy is intense this week. Someone may be watching you from a distance. They may be interested but hesitant. They may not know whether you would welcome their attention. And you may sense something before they say anything. Your intuition is especially strong. You could notice a change in someone's behavior, a different tone in their messages, more attention, a sudden invitation, a conversation that feels more personal than usual. Don't ignore those small details. But don't build an entire future around them either. Let the person reveal themselves. You don't need to chase. You don't need to prove that you're interested. If the connection is real, it will move toward you too. There may also be someone from your past who thinks about contacting you. They may regret how something ended. They may wonder whether you would speak to them again. But if they return, remember this. A return is not the same as a transformation. Someone can miss you and still not be capable of giving you what you need. Someone can regret losing you and still not know how to love you properly. So if the past knocks on your door, don't open it simply because you recognize the voice. Ask what has changed. Ask what they are offering now. And most importantly, ask what you want, not what they want. You. That question becomes very important this week. Career energy becomes increasingly powerful around August 19th and 20th. You may find yourself standing at a professional crossroads. Perhaps you've been thinking about leaving your current job. Maybe you want more responsibility. Maybe you're considering starting something independently. Maybe you've been developing a project quietly. Or perhaps you simply want to be recognized for the work you already do. The tarot suggests that people are noticing you more than you realize. Someone may be impressed by your ability to remain calm under pressure. Someone may trust your judgment. Someone may come to you with a confidential matter. A new responsibility may be offered. And while part of you may wonder whether you can handle it, another part already knows the answer. Yes, you can. You've handled difficult situations before. You've survived uncertainty. You've learned from mistakes. You have developed skills through experiences that weren't always easy. Don't let the memory of past failures convince you that you are incapable of future success. Your past is evidence of what you've survived. It is not a prediction of what will happen next. Financially, the week carries a message of rebuilding. If money has been inconsistent, you may begin seeing signs of improvement. A delayed payment, a new client, a second income source, professional opportunity, a financial idea that finally begins making sense. But the tarot doesn't encourage reckless decisions. It encourages strategy. You may have a chance to make more money, but you need to think beyond immediate gain. Ask yourself, will this help me 6 months from now? That question could protect you from impulsive decisions. You may also discover that a hidden talent has financial potential. Something you've been doing casually. Something you enjoy. Something you're naturally good at. Perhaps you've never thought of it as a business. But this week could plant that idea in your mind. Don't dismiss it. Some of the biggest changes in life begin as small thoughts. A simple idea. Conversation. Possibility. And then one day that possibility becomes a reality. Around August 20th, the tarot shows an emotional breakthrough. Something you've been carrying may finally become too heavy. And instead of breaking down, you may simply put it down. You may stop trying to understand someone who doesn't want to explain themselves. You may stop waiting for someone who keeps delaying. You may stop proving your worth to people who already decided not to see it. You may stop carrying guilt for something that wasn't entirely your responsibility. And when you do, you may feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Space. Emotional space. Mental space. The ability to think about something else. Scorpio. Sometimes we don't realize how much energy we spend holding on to something until we finally release it. You may have been carrying an old conversation for years. Replaying what you should have said. Imagining what might have happened if you had acted differently. But you cannot rewrite the past. You can only decide what meaning it has now. Maybe the meaning is that you learned to recognize manipulation. Maybe you learned to trust your intuition. Maybe you learned not to ignore red flags. Maybe you learned what you will never tolerate again. Then the experience wasn't wasted. It became wisdom. As August 21st approaches, you may become more selective with your energy. You may stop answering every message. Stop explaining every decision. Stop trying to be available to everyone. And this could surprise people. Some may ask why you've changed. You haven't become cold. You've simply become aware of your limits. You are learning that not everyone deserves unlimited access to you. Your attention is valuable. Your time is valuable. Your emotional energy is valuable. And you don't have to give those things away simply because someone asks. This is especially important in family relationships. You may have a relative who depends on you emotionally. You may have been the person everyone calls when there is a problem. You may have become the one who fixes things. But this week you may finally realize, I can love my family without carrying every problem they have. That is not abandonment. That is a boundary. And healthy boundaries can actually make relationships stronger. You don't have to disappear. You simply have to stop sacrificing yourself. As the weekend approaches, something unexpected may happen. A message, a phone call, a meeting, an invitation, professional development, a romantic revelation. Something that you didn't plan for could alter your mood or your direction. And your first reaction may be suspicion. Scorpio naturally protects itself. You don't trust easily. You observe. You test. You wait. And honestly, that instinct has protected you many times. But this week, be careful not to protect yourself so much that you block something good. Not everyone is trying to hurt you. Not every opportunity hides a trap. Not every new person carries the same intentions as someone from your past. Give people the opportunity to show you who they are. You don't need blind trust. You need patient observation. And that is something you are very good at. By August 22nd and 23rd, your energy becomes noticeably lighter. You may have a moment where you realize that something you once thought was impossible is actually beginning to happen. Maybe your career is changing. Maybe your financial situation is improving. Maybe someone new has entered your life. Maybe an old relationship is finally losing its emotional power. Or maybe you have simply become stronger. Whatever it is, there is a sense of movement. And movement is important, because you may have felt stuck for a while. But sometimes being stuck is not the same as being still. Under the surface, you were preparing, learning, growing, rebuilding, understanding yourself. And now that preparation begins to show. You may also feel more creative. An idea you've been thinking about could become more serious. You may want to write, create, start a project, build a business, change your appearance, travel, learn something new, or simply do something that makes you feel alive again. Follow that feeling. Not every decision has to be practical. Sometimes your soul needs something that your mind cannot explain. And Scorpio, you've spent enough time surviving. You are allowed to experience life too. You are allowed to enjoy something without wondering how it will end. You are allowed to love without immediately planning how to protect yourself from heartbreak. You are allowed to dream without calculating every possible failure. You are allowed to believe that something good can happen. That may be difficult for you, but it is part of your transformation. This week isn't asking you to become less intense. Your intensity is one of your greatest strengths. It is asking you to direct that intensity towards something that deserves it. Your future, your goals, your creativity, your healing, your happiness. Instead of spending all your energy wondering what someone else is thinking, ask yourself what you want. Instead of trying to predict whether someone will stay, build a life that remains meaningful either way. Instead of waiting for someone to recognize your value, recognize it yourself. Instead of trying to control the future, prepare yourself to meet it. That is where your power is. As August 23rd comes closer, you may finally understand why some things had to happen the way they did. The person who hurt you may have taught you boundaries. The opportunity you lost may have redirected you. The relationship that ended may have introduced you to yourself. The financial struggle may have taught you discipline. The loneliness may have taught you independence. The uncertainty may have taught you trust. And now, all of those lessons are becoming part of who you are. You are not the same Scorpio who entered those difficult experiences. You are wiser, more observant, more selective, more emotionally intelligent, and perhaps more peaceful. The tarot suggests that the next chapter of your life doesn't need to be as complicated as the previous one. You don't need chaos to feel alive. You don't need emotional drama to know that you care. You don't need someone to hurt you before you know they matter. You don't need to lose something before appreciating it. You can choose peace now. You can choose stability. You can choose people who communicate. You can choose opportunities that respect your time. You can choose relationships where you don't have to constantly question your position. You can choose yourself. And that choice may be the most important thing that happens this week. So Scorpio, as you move through August 17th to August 23rd, pay attention to what leaves you feeling peaceful. Pay attention to what drains you. Pay attention to who makes an effort. Pay attention to who only appears when they need something. Pay attention to opportunities that continue returning. Pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to your intuition. And when your heart tells you something is over, don't be afraid to believe it. When your heart tells you something is beginning, don't be afraid to explore it. You don't have to know exactly where the road ends. You only need to take the next step. Because sometimes destiny doesn't reveal the entire path. It reveals one step, then another, then another. And eventually you look back and realize that every step brought you exactly where you needed to be. Scorpio, you are entering a new chapter. It may begin quietly. Nobody may notice immediately. There may be no dramatic announcement, no huge moment, just a decision inside you. A decision to stop going backward. A decision to stop carrying what isn't yours. A decision to stop chasing what doesn't choose you. A decision to trust yourself. And once you make that decision, your life begins to move differently. You may still have difficult days. You may still have unanswered questions. But you will no longer feel powerless. Because you will understand something important. You cannot control what other people do. You cannot control who stays. You cannot control every outcome. But you can control what you accept. You can control where you place your energy. You can control whether you keep repeating old patterns. And you can control whether you walk toward your future or remain trapped in your past. This week, Scorpio, walk forward. Even if it is slowly. Even if you are still healing. Even if you're uncertain. Walk forward. Because there is something waiting for you that cannot reach you while you are constantly looking behind you. And by the time August 23rd comes to an end, you may finally feel it. The past is becoming quieter. Your intuition is becoming stronger. Your heart is becoming lighter. And your future is beginning to feel possible again.